Tamara through my chiropractor. We lived in Michigan at the time. I had been on and off with all kinds of crazy stuff for years, starting around about the age of 14. I had stomach aches on and off. It kind of come and go from week to week with different food. We tried lactose intolerance, we tried celiac disease, Crohn's disease, IBS, the whole 9 yards. I tried everything and they could never really find anything that was wrong. They put me on Lactaid for a while. We thought it worked, then it didn't work. We went through extensive allergy testing and they just never really found anything. So through the years it continued to get worse. I'd had my tonsils and adenoids removed when I was a freshman in high school. They took them out. They said they should have been removed far earlier than that. They were just saturated with, I think, 8 or 9 different types of fungus. It was an absolute mess. So they took those out, and I was continually sick at that point in time. Even though I didn't have a fever spiking, I was constantly sick and never completely went away. So we dealt with that. Again, the pain was still there. My weight kind of came and went. At one point in high school, I was down around 100 pounds. I'm 5'8", so that's very, very little. So I was like that. It was a problem in school because I'd spend a whole class in the bathroom. I'd try to hide. It was incredibly embarrassing, and again, nobody could figure out what was wrong. So let's see, we went from there to, let's see, what was the next thing? Way too many things. Ended up having knee surgery when I was in high school as well, and that we thought was an unrelated, but we're now thinking everything was kind of related just because of the stress my body was going through. So I had that. In college, kind of continued, maybe got a little bit worse. Once I got married and was pregnant with my first child, who was born in November of 2005, my pregnancy was okay. It was mostly textbook. When it came to having him, we had a lot of trouble. My body never went into labor. And again, they never really made a connection there. We've now made connections, but never went into labor. They had to put me on Pitocin. Pitocin is a horrible drug that induces your labor. I had a negative reaction to it, so I would have 3 contractions at one time with no pause in between. He did end up being delivered, and he was okay. I had an episiotomy that time. My body just needed to really get back because it was completely out. After him, everything came back 100% worse. They thought maybe I had endometriosis. They did a diagnostic laparoscopy to check for that. They did not find anything. The only thing they could find were ovarian cysts, which they said every woman in the general population has them, so we don't really need to worry about those. So that was that time. Then I ended up getting pregnant with my second child in June of 2006. 2006, goodness, too many days. And with her, I had a very, very rough pregnancy. I was sick constantly, just not doing really well with her. In December of 2006, I ended up on a Sunday night. We'd been up doing some minor things around the house, had gone to bed around 9 o'clock and noticed my back kind of hurt. Didn't think much of it. Ended up going into labor about 20 minutes after that, feeling like somebody was squeezing me. I could not breathe. We went into the hospital and they found out I was in labor and I was only about 24 weeks pregnant. They did testing all night long, could not figure out what my body was doing. They had to give me magnesium sulfate to stop the contractions, which makes your body feel like you're on fire and you hallucinate, so you're kind of all over. They ended up having to take my appendix out. They said it wasn't really inflamed, but they were in there and they thought that was what the problem was. So they ended up taking that out. I spent about a week in the hospital, pregnant, trying to recover, having somebody kick you from the inside. But we got through that. But again, my body was under tremendous stress, more pain medications. From there, ended up having her about 3.5 weeks early. Again, my body did not go into labor. They had to induce me with Pitocin, had another adverse reaction to it. We couldn't get her to drop. The cord ended up wrapping around her neck because she dropped suddenly. I had one chance to push. We did get her out. They had me on an epidural, so more drugs that my body just could not handle. But we got her. She had some minor issues that had to be taken care of, which she got through. But then me, Again, everything came back 110% worse that time. They did more diagnostic laparoscopies, could not figure out what the problem was. Ended up having my gallbladder taken out later that summer. Again, they thought that was a problem, not really sure it was a problem, but we'll try it anyway. So they took that out, and that caused more problems because when you don't have a gallbladder, even though the doctors say you don't need it, you really do because it helps your body digest certain foods. So now you have to change your diet again. So we had that going on. Then in, let's see, 2000, that was in 2007. December of 2007, on Christmas Day, what a wonderful day, ended up being in severe pain. We could not figure out what was going on. I thought it was just another one of my stomach aches, no big deal, it'll go away. To give you an idea of what a stomach ache is, it is a stomach ache that you cannot put on the chart. It's what you would feel on an average day that would kind of put you in bed would be what I would feel like on every day. This is a stomach ache that's worse than labor. I'd much rather be in labor. That's how bad they would get. You couldn't breathe through them. You would just lay on the floor and basically scream. That was all you could do to deal with it. So we went through the whole night. My family was there with me. We prayed through it. We did heating pads. We tried everything we could to try to get my body to relax so I could rest. By the morning, it had not gotten any better. We went into the doctor. You know, they do a lovely little tap on your back. Figured it was a kidney infection. Had gone from the bladder up to the kidneys. They put me on some meds. Took those. It continued to get worse. That was on a Wednesday. I ended up at a hospital ER on that Friday in excruciating pain. Couldn't even walk. Was in a wheelchair going in. The doctors there never touched me. They walked in. They looked at me. And they basically did absolutely nothing. I have not seen my husband or my mother that upset in quite a while because they didn't do anything to help me. And I remember my mom standing out there on the phone. I don't remember who she was talking to, but just that they had sent me away in worse pain than I'd come in. So that was on a Saturday. On Sunday, we decided to go down to Beaumont, which Beaumont in Michigan is probably one of the #1 hospitals right up there with the University of Michigan. Went down there. Again, they could not figure out what was wrong with me, couldn't figure out what my body was doing. They ended up doing a upper GI where you have to drink that lovely cocktail that they make for you. And, you know, so they can see everything, and they did that. They couldn't really find anything. A couple days later, they were doing, I believe it was either a CT or an MRI, and they still found the fluid in my stomach, which had been from that Friday. So it had been 2-3 days later, and it was still there. So then they decided to do a test where you eat eggs with radioactive material in them. It's really fun. And they watch you. They take pictures every hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, because after 4 hours your stomach should be less than 10%. Ideally it should be completely empty. I was retaining 66% of my food. So they diagnosed me with what you call gastric paresis, which they said they had no idea why I had it because that's normal in diabetics, which I am not diabetic. So now we had that. They put me on Reglan, they put me on other high pain meds to try to deal with the gastric paresis, which it never went away. What ended up happening is they sent me home. We ended up back and forth to Beaumont multiple times because I would eat. My esophagus would fill up with food and I would throw up every 20 to 30 minutes. I was not retaining anything. Ended up on a diet of apple juice, chicken broth, and Jell-O. That was what I was eating. I was losing about 1 pound a day. And they tried to diagnose me with depression. They tried to tell me it was all in my brain. They did look at my brain. They looked for cancer. They looked for everything under the sun, could not find anything wrong with me, and finally discharged me and told me there was nothing further they could do for me, and had referred me either to the University of Michigan or Mayo Clinic.